Good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's Inspiration Wednesday session. My name's Tara. Thanks for joining us. Today's topic is going to be all about tin can. And before I introduce today's speaker, just a couple of housekeeping items to go over with you. First and foremost, if this is your first Inspiration Wednesday session, welcome. We try to offer these a couple times a month free of charge. These sessions are being recorded, so in just a couple of days they will be available out on our website. So if you need to reference any of this material again, or maybe a colleague couldn't join you, that'll be available to you. You may have noticed that all of your audio has been muted. There are tons of us on today's call, so this will make things nice and easy. We won't have to worry about background noise, and everyone can hear the presentation loud and clear. Now, if you have questions throughout the presentation, you have a little questions panel there, right there in that GoToMeeting screen. So feel free to log your questions there. I will be doing my best to man those questions. Any questions that do not get a response throughout the presentation, we'll certainly do a nice question and answer series at the end of that session. Now, before I pass this over to our presenter, if you could give me just a little bit of feedback there. You should be able to see our screen at this point, that Inspiration Wednesday screen, and you should be able to hear my audio. So if you could just provide a little bit of feedback in that questions panel, perfect. You guys are always nice and awake early in the morning. That looks fantastic. Thanks for that feedback. Okay, well, without any further ado, I'm going to hand this off to this morning's presenter, and that's John Blackman. John is the Senior VP of Authoring Products here at Trivantis. So he is working in the office down in Boca Raton with all the guys and developing out all of our products. So I'm going to hand this over to John. If you have questions about tin can, again, I'm going to do my best to answer those for you in that chat window, but John is the expert right now on tin cans, so certainly at the end of the session we can have a nice question and answer. So thanks a lot, and John, over to you.
Thank you very much, Tara. As Tara said, my name is John Blackman. I'm the Senior VP of Authoring Products, and today we're going to discuss tin can. It's probably one of the biggest discussion points in e-learning today because everybody really kind of wants to know what it is. We keep hearing buzz about it, a lot of information, but most people really don't know what it is and what it can do. So that's what we're going to try to work on today. All right, so the first question, what is tin can? Well, tin can has got several names. That's the first important thing. You'll hear it referred to as tin can. You'll also refer to as Experience API or XAPI. I've even heard SCORM Next Generation as an official name. I believe it's going with tin can, but at some point it might be XAPI. But really, it's a new specification for e-learning that makes it possible to collect custom data from your courses. It really is the next version of SCORM, so there won't be any further versions of SCORM. It's going to evolve into tin can. So if everything you do with SCORM today, all the information you get with SCORM today, you can also get with tin can. One difference with tin can is it reports to what's known as an LRS. We're all familiar. Of course, we need a new acronym, right? We're all familiar with an LMS. The LRS is a learning record store, and it's just basically a way to store records, and we'll discuss that more in just a moment. So how do you use it? Well, first and most importantly is your course needs to have a tin can compliant LMS, LRS in order to take advantage of tin can. It's like a language. So you can think of AICC, SCORM, and tin can as English, French, and Spanish. So those are ways to convey information, ways to get information back and forth between a course and an LMS. But both sides have to speak English in order to talk. Both sides need to speak Spanish. Both sides need to speak French. So they need to talk the same language. So there aren't a whole lot of options right now, but those are coming. They're going to be LMSs will all be supporting, including those at Trivantis, will all be supporting tin can in the near future. So it's something to look forward to, and there'll be a lot of that coming on. Now, since tin can is the next version of SCORM, if you're only really still trying to get the same information as SCORM, you really don't need to do anything different than you're doing today. SCORM gives you test scores, it'll give you your interaction data, it'll give you completion data. If that's all you're looking for and your learning management system has moved on to tin can, you don't need to change the way you use Lectora today. That same information will be passed across. All you do is publish to tin can, it's a new publishing option, and that will create a tin can conformant course that will pass along all the same information before. So very easy to use if you're just trying to get that same information. So an LRS, the new acronym, what does it mean? It's a learning record store, and the name kind of gives it away what it is. It's just a way to store records. So it is a very simplified way to store records. It also allows for reporting on and exporting of those records. The big difference between an LRS and an LMS is that The LRS does not have the course content. So right now we all look at an LMS, we publish to an LMS, we copy our course up there. That's not really necessarily the case with the LRS. However, that being said, most of the time, especially in these first instances, the LRS will become part of the LMS. They may not even separate it out in your view, so you will just feel like it's the same thing as your LMS. So you'll put your course up into the LRS, the course into the LMS, and it will report to the LRS. It'll seem all as one. Well, that's great, but so if that's all we can do, why is all this fuss about Tin Can? Why are we all talking about it? Well, Tin Can allows you to do more. So in addition to all the things that SCORM and AICC have, it builds upon that and allows for flexible statements. So you can put in information that you want. You can get more information from your users than you could through normal means of SCORM and AICC. These flexible statements are always in the form of noun, verb, and object. So what does that mean? So a noun is the who. Really, it talks about who is sending this information across. And in this case, that's completely handled by Lectora. The who is the user, the student taking the course. So you don't need to do anything for that when you're dealing with Tin Can. Lectora knows, since we're running inside of a shell somewhere, we know who's using the course. We send that information for you automatically. You then have a verb, and this is the action part of the statement. So what is happening in that statement? So what this is what type of activity you recorded. You then have an object. Now this is the nice part. It's really a free-form text area. You can say what was acted upon by the user. So you can really customize the kind of data that is in your course. Well, that's great, but how do I do it? Maybe you have Lectora, maybe you tried to look for Tin Can and you're not sure how to use it. What can I do with it? Well, first you have to set your course into AIC, SCORM, or Tin Can. So that is the setting on the title options. It's on your design ribbon. That actually adds in a new option to your actions. The new action is Tin Can statement, as you can see right here. Tin Can statement is a brand new type that goes on. Once you set your title type to an AICC SCORM Tin Can title, that action will be available. That action can go anywhere an action is in your title right now. So you can have it on a mouse enter, mouse exit, click on a button, click on a page, the show of a page, the show of an object. Anywhere you can trigger an action today, which is a lot of places, you can trigger a Tin Can statement. That's kind of its flexibilities. It allows you to get information at any point along the way. Okay, so once we've created a Tin Can statement by adding that new action, we then have to add in the two things. As we said before, the noun is handled for you. The noun is the who. It's who is making this statement, so we'll record that for you automatically. You have to provide a verb and an object. The verb, we provide you with a preset list of verbs that exist out there, and that is this set you see here on the left side of the screen. The verb can be any of these things and is extended by the object. The object is a text field. It's free-form text. So with this, you can really kind of capture anything from there. So you could say, hey, I watched a video, or I achieved this goal. It really lets you just define the kind of data that you want to keep, and that data is kept in the Learning Record Store and reported on. The nice thing about a record store is that eventually, as these things move on and become more mature, you're going to be able to report individually on things that matter specifically to your course and to you. So what's an example? That's really cool. You can do all kinds of new stuff, but what's an example of what you can do with that? So let's take a look at an example. So here I have a small course that I created for the user conference in San Antonio. And it's not much of a course. It's just kind of information. It's just a few pages and a few questions that I've created out there. So let's take a look at what it does first, and then we'll see how we could apply Tin Can to this to get more from it. So this is kind of an introduction to San Antonio course. The user conference was in San Antonio this year. And here we have the first page. It just asks us a question because we want to know whether or not the user has been to San Antonio before, because we're going to give, if he hasn't been there before, we want to give him a little bit more deep information. If he has, then we'll just skip to some things he probably doesn't know about San Antonio. So we ask them a question. We ask them an intro question, and that intro question, as you see on its feedback, if they say, hey, on the correct feedback, he goes to a fun and facts page. We've set the correct answer to this question to be yes. So the question is, have you visited before? If they say yes, we're going to go to the Fun and Facts page because they've been here before. They don't need to go to the introduction. They know about that. But if they click on no, we're going to take them to the intro page because, hey, they've never been to San Antonio. Let's give them a quick introduction to the town so they know about the town. On the intro page, we have just some pictures and text, a little bit of history about San Antonio, but we've included a couple of rollovers. So I've got these rollovers that pop up when you mouse over those things. Just a little bit of information about what these individual pictures are. So just in case they don't know, they can roll over the pictures and get information. And then I have the fun facts page. These are like little information tidbits that people may not know about it. But over here on the right, I have a little logo there for the user conference. And if they click on that, it takes them to the user conference website. Get more information about the user conference. Okay. And then I have the test. Test is just 2 questions, very standard, couple of questions representative of what they've learned. Now, in this little course, there's a few things I'd really like to know. When they go to the welcome page, they have actually 3 different ways to navigate off this page. And in a normal SCORM or AICC, actually you'd get no information from this. You wouldn't know anything about how the student handled this page, what they did. And maybe that's important to me. Maybe I really want to know, hey, how many people went to this page, went to the intro page? How many people looked at that? Or how many people even actually skipped the question, didn't answer the question because they have this button up here on the right. They actually could just not even answer the question. I haven't forced them to answer the question. They might skip it entirely. So I need to know that. Maybe if I find that everybody's skipping the question, I'll force them to answer the question. So how do I find that information out? Well, I've got a few things here. I've on the click of the button, I've added on both buttons, both choice buttons, both of these choice buttons. When they click on a select change, I issue a tin can statement. So on this button right here, which is the choice 1 button, we issue a tin can statement. I say, hey, they've experienced that click the bin there button. Now I chose the term click the bin there button. It could be any text we want. It's a free form text field. You can enter any text you want in there. And on the choice 2 button, which again is the no button, they're saying, hey, they haven't been here before. I say they've experienced clicking the no button. That's great. So I'll know if they've gone in. So if they click on the choice 1 button or the choice 2 button, I'll get a tin can statement. If they don't issue any statement at all, and I see that they visited the 2 different pages, then I'll know that they just completely skipped the question and just moved on. If I wanted to, I could even put a tin can statement specifically on that next button to know how they did that as well. Just depends on what information I want to collect. So on the intro page, I've created this page, and I went through some effort to create these pop-ups and rollovers. So I didn't put any instructive text here to let them know that they can do that. So I'm kind of interested to know if people pick up on that. Do they roll over these? Do they not roll over these? Again, that's information that you would never know using SCORM or AICC. And it'll help me in the future to create my course better if I know that, hey, students are using the things that I create in the course. So because of that, I've added in a few tin can statements. Now I have the standard rollover. I show and hide when the mouse enters and exits. But I also say on mouse enter. Again, I can put that tin can statement on any action within a title. So on mouse enter, we issue a tin can statement. And so I say, on this case, on the mission, I say he experienced the mission rollover pop-up. And on the Riverwalk, I say he experienced the Riverwalk rollover pop-up. So that way I know if the student is actually doing that. And I can learn from that as I see students using it and taking it. Maybe they're never figuring out that those rollovers are there. Perhaps I need to put some instructive text. Maybe I need to change the whole paradigm, maybe change the way they do it so that it automatically pops up over time. We'll see. On the Fun and Facts page, I have that LUC boot logo. I want to know if the user clicks that. I want to know if the user goes there. Again, with the SCORM, I have no way to do that. With tin can, very simple. I just throw a quick tin can statement on there. Every time they click it, I get a tin can statement. It's going to say I interacted with the LUC website because that's what the user's doing. He's clicking it and he's going right through and interacting with the LUC website. Now, probably more important is notice that in the test, I actually didn't do anything different. There is no, I don't have to actually do anything different in here. I could have. I can add different tin can statements here. But really, because it does everything that SCORM and AICC did, and I'm going to publish with interactions, I'm going to know what the student answered. I'm going to know what the question was. I'm going to know what the answer was. I'll know what the score is. So I think I really have all the information I need from here. So I don't need to do any extra effort to get all the information out of there I need to get out of there. That's great. Okay, so I think I've improved this course a lot by adding just a few tin can statements in to see what's going to happen, and it'll allow me to learn more about my course so I can do it better in the future. So first thing you do is you publish to tin can. So just as one of your options, you can publish to tin can. It's over here on the quick publish menu, which is what I always use. Note you have all of the standard options I think you've seen before. You have something here called activity ID. This is actually the unique ID. This will identify your course. Tin Can is set up so that these can be reported to anywhere. And this should be a completely unique identifier for your course. Now, we automatically put in the name of your course here. This is intended to be a helper for you, if you will, to put in your own. I suggest putting in your own company URL if you have one, or something unique that won't be anywhere else. Because if it is what uniquely identifies it, and in the case of a large system which may have many, many different users in there, these need to be globally unique. The activity name and description are just for you. Those don't have to be unique. Those are things that are unique to you. The activity ID is what uniquely identifies that, and it has to be a URL in this form, which is a web address, if you will. And also note that we've reported the test and survey interaction data to the LRS, so that we'll get that information from there. So we go ahead and publish that. When we publish, it just creates a zip file and puts it in there. So fortunately, I have put this up. We have an account in the SCORM Cloud. SCORM Cloud is at cloud.scorm.com. It is a tin can compliant LMS LRS, if you will. It can both house the course, and it will keep the tin can statements from the course. So I've uploaded that tin can IW there. So let's go ahead and launch the course and take a look at it. Okay, so there it is. It's the same course we were just looking at. I don't think we really need to go through all of the information pages we just went through. But let's take a look at the course. I put a nice little button here to skip to the examples. It'll take me right to the examples. So there's my first question. So we have 3 ways, again, to navigate this. Let's start out by just going through and saying, okay, we've visited here before. I'm going to say I haven't. So I'm going to go to the first page. So if I haven't, remember we had the feedback, and when they said no, the feedback took us to this page. But we also should have recorded a tin can statement there. Now this is the page that I wanted to know if there were any, if anyone was using those rollovers and pop-ups. Did anybody understand that they need to do that? And we'll see. I'm going to go, I'll just really go out of there. So we definitely use those rollovers and pop-ups. So we should get that information in there. That's great. And this is the page where I was really trying to find out if the user ever clicks on the LUC website. So we'll click it, and sure enough, it goes in, and hey, the next user conference is in Hollywood. Hopefully you all knew that. So next year, we'll see you all in Hollywood. But we'll again click forward, and we'll be taken to the test. Now the test is, again, we really didn't do anything special. We just put the test up there, but we'll see what comes across with the test. So first question, San Antonio is Spanish for St. Anthony. That sounds pretty true to me. And San Antonio was named for, bit of a tougher question, but he was actually named for St. Anthony of Padua. And we will submit that to the SCORM Cloud. All right, so we've put our information in. And now let's go ahead and look at it. Now that is, in the SCORM Cloud, that is done through registration. They call it registration statements. So right now the SCORM Cloud just actually loads up your registration statements, and there they are. So what happened when we were, what information was in there? Well, we've gone through, and the first thing that happened is we experienced the welcome page. Now you'll note that I did not put a action in for the page views. Automatically, Lectora automatically does that for you. So every page that's viewed in your title, you will get an experience for that page going through Tin Can. It's kind of nice because you can really see, without doing anything, you can see the way the user walked through your title. You kind of get a path through the title. And perhaps that's enough to give you enough information. But I found out that, hey, they clicked the no button right here. So we now know that the user went through and clicked the no button, and they didn't know, so that they were taken to the intro page. We can see that right there. And you can see that I was getting a little crazy with the rollover pop-ups. We get a tin can statement for every one of those, so I can see definitely this user was using all the pop-ups. Then I see that he clicked right over to the Fun and Facts page. Fantastic. And he did figure out the LUC website. All right. So he went through, and these are experience question 1 and question 2. This is the pages, page 1 and page 2 of those were the names of the pages that were reviewed. So we went through and viewed those pages. I probably ought to give those a better name so you can see it's question page 2, question page 1. But we then see that, all right, we went in and we got 100 on the test. I passed the test, and then I went to the check results page. And then here's my interactions. I got a correct answer for San Antonio Spanish for St. Anthony with response true, and I got a correct answer for San Antonio was named for St. Anthony of Padua. And I got 100. Fantastic. All right, so I've got that information. So let's take a look at what happens if we do that a little differently. And I have to always refresh. And we clear out those statements, and now we've got a new set of statements. And let's go back in. Okay, so we're going to take the same look at it, but instead of even answering this question, I'm gonna be your minimalist user. I'm not really doing a whole lot here, so I'm just going to skip through. Yeah, they're not forcing me to do anything here. I'm not going to do anything. You know, just going to answer anyway I want to and submit it. So now that's your user who, you know, I wasn't in this course. I didn't really force anything to happen. I didn't make the user do anything. So what do we see in that case? So let's view those registration statements. Again, I need to refresh. And we'll see quite different, quite different. I see that the user just went through the pages. He wasn't doing anything. He didn't interact with anything on the pages. I can really see that I need to change that course a little bit because I'm making it too easy for him to just skip through. Of course, he did pay the price. He didn't do too well on that test. He failed the test, did not do very well. So you can see that he paid for it in the end. So really, Tin Can gives you a way to find out information you wouldn't be able to find out any other way. You're able to, with Tin Can, you can get the user's path through the course. You can find out little tidbits of information, how they're using your course, and you can use that as feedback to improve your course in the future. It's a great way, and going forward, it'll be the way to go. I think that you'll find, as time goes on, that most every vendor will be putting Tin Can into their course and into their LMSs, and you'll be able to use that in entirely different new ways that we haven't even thought of yet. That's the beauty of the openness of Tin Can. So thank you. Thank you very much. I hope I've gone through everything you were looking to find out about Tin Can, and I think now we're open for questions, Tara.
Okay, sorry, I was talking without my audio being back. We do have a couple questions in the chat room, so let me just log through. I was answering a few of them, but just need clarification on a couple. So one of the questions was asked if this Tin Can functionality is available yet in CourseMill, and I know that is not currently available, but it is slated for a future release, so that will certainly be available in CourseMill soon. Let's see. Oh, someone asked the question, okay, if taking a course from another learning center, such as a subscription learning provider, could this be learning that is recorded in CourseMill transcripts using Tin Can? So assuming in the future, when CourseMill accepts Tin Can, is that something that we'll be able to record?
You kind of cut out there, Tara. I kind of missed what you're saying. I think the users may have also.
Okay, sure. The question is, if someone is taking a course from another learning center, such as a subscription learning provider, could that learning be recorded in CourseMill transcripts using Tin Can?
Yeah, when Tin Can, and that's the beauty of it being an LRS, when Tin Can is put into CourseMill and put into any LRS, the course can reside in one area and report to another area, and that will function that way. But now the LMS has to be written to allow that. But yes, it will allow you to. The Tin Can is what they call stateless, in that it allows you to report without being logged in, if you will. So you can report information. So you can put in a tin can destination, you can put in a tin can weight, and that will allow that. It has to be written into the LMS, but it should allow that.
Okay, thank you. Another question here is about using YouTube videos. Is it possible to record the learning that I have through watching a video in YouTube into my LMS? If yes, what setup do I have to make on YouTube and in my LMS? How does it work? I'm
Oh,
assuming if you just pull in your YouTube video into Lectora, you can use an on-done playing action, right? And just run a tin can statement off of that.
yeah, that'll work. I think the question was more like, could they do it directly from YouTube? But yeah, you're absolutely correct. You could do it in that way. Directly from YouTube, they would have to put that support into YouTube, and I don't think it's not in there right now. Don't know if they are planning on supporting that in the future.
Right. Let's see. Someone asked the question, if you don't have an LMS, where is the information stored?
Don't have an LMS. So I'm not sure exactly on that question whether they're talking about if it's the information or the content. So if you don't have an LMS, the content can be stored anywhere. It can be stored on a separate, it has to be on a web server, right? You have to take that information on a web server, but it can be stored just about anywhere, and that as long as you know where to report to, it can report out to that web server. It'll be stored in the LRS, if you will. There has to be an LRS that receives it, right? So that talks tin can. As we spoke about, it's like speaking a language. If tin can is French, you need to speak to someone who understands French in order for that information to be recorded.
Right. Question here, are there standard reports to use, or do you have to create your own reports from the data? Can you download into Excel? I'm assuming the tin can statement information.
Certainly the tin can statement information, as is today, can be downloaded to Excel. So tin can is new, and tin can is new, and it's changing all the time, and the SCORM cloud has a great and the first representation of that, a great way to put it up there. But it is, fairly rudimentary in its reporting capabilities, in that it lists out the statements for you, and then you could download those and report it on yourself. You will see as time goes on that you will have tremendous reporting capabilities, because if you think about it, it gives you unlimited potential to report on tin can information. You'll be able to, let's say you've put in one of your interactions is, I watched a YouTube video, for instance. Well, you can go, theoretically, once that's in the thing, you should be able to go in and just type out that statement and get a report on exactly how many students, what percentage of students watched the YouTube video, things like that. That all has to be built into the LMS. Those are things that are not built in right now. Until they get tin can support, they won't be, but they're all building in. As you can probably imagine, there's a lot of work that will need to be done on the LMS side to allow this kind of free-form reporting. But it'll give you a lot of power when it does.
Okay, good. Another question here, why is pretty much everything called experienced? I think some of the examples John used in terms of his tin can statements, he used experienced, but you have a number of verbs available in Lectora: answered, asked, attempted, attended, commented, completed, failed, launched. John can show you the list there on his screen. But I think some of his examples just for today, he used the verb experienced, but you have that entire list available to you in Lectora. So.
Right. Right. And experienced is the standard one. It's actually known as the Experience API. As tin can morphed over time, many of these were added, but Experience is kind of the standard one that's used many times. But as you said, there are many different things you can put on here.
Can you see collective results for multiple users? I imagine that might depend on your LRS that you're using, but
Exactly,
on how that reporting.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And remember, the LRSs are in their infancy right now, and they will get better over time. And this time next year, if we were to have this, I'm sure I could get pie charts on how many people clicked on the logo versus didn't click on the logo, and bar graphs on over time, day by day, how many people did it. I mean, there's so many different possibilities, but all that has to be created. I mean, tin can, is about a whole month old right now, so.
Can tin can be published to our own LMS or only to the cloud?
If your LMS supports tin can, it certainly can be published to that. So again, it has to speak the language. But yes, I mean, once it supports tin can, it can be published there.
Do you have a list of the new things that tin can tracks? Can really
I guess that would probably be an infinite list, right? Because it can be anything your heart desires. That's the beauty of tin can. It's freeform. It's free form, but it's structured. You can it's structured in the way it records it, but it's not. It's free form in what you can record. So you can track anything that an action can be put on. So I can, and an action is really, I mean, it's triggered on, anything, page shows, hides, mouse clicks, enters. I mean, there's just so many different things you can do to trigger. So it really can track just about anything you can imagine.
Mm-hmm. For the URL, can you only report to one address? Not sure.
Yes. So, yes, you have to you're reporting to a single LRS as you go through. So yes, one address.
Okay. Do you have to define these specifically for each element on each page, or can a template-based definition be applied to the entire course content? So assuming the statements.
So now what was that question again?
Do you have to define these specifically for each element on each page, or can you use more like a template-based definition that applies to the entire project?
Oh, certainly. You can, and maybe inheritance, right? So yeah, you can certainly put these at the title level or anything. I mean, it's a standard action, so anywhere an action would be. So if you want to put it so that it's inherited from every page and the way it goes, absolutely, you can do it that way.
Here's a good one. Can you use tin can answers in the course itself as well as in the LMS? So for example, show page 2 only if tin can recorded tin can interaction X.
The tin can interaction itself is not a variable you can use as a condition in an action, but because it is an action, you can easily have another action that sets a variable or sets some data or does whatever it is you need to do that you can then act upon. So yes, and the answer, I guess, is yes and no to that. You certainly can do that. It's not that tin can statement itself is not a conditional thing. It's not something you can use as a condition. But because it's an action, you can just add an action to set set something that you can have a condition on later.
Mm-hmm. Unique ID, can you explain it more on how it needs to be a URL, and will it work if it isn't a valid URL?
So the unique ID, again, was the activity ID we talked about here. And this is a very important concept. Yes, it needs to be a URL. It needs to be in the form of a URL. That's one of the specifications of Tin Can 1.0. Does it need to be valid? That would depend upon your LMS. This is not a valid URL, by the way. And SCORM Cloud allows that not to be a valid URL. But this is the globally unique identifier. So let's say you create the next great course in the world, and it's going to be used all over the place, and you're going to sell it and make tons of money, and it's going to be on 100 different LMSs out there or sold commercially. It needs to have a unique ID because someone else may create it, and it may have the same name. I've called this Tin Can IW. Maybe someone else created another one called Tin Can IW. If those are both loaded on the same LRS, they will conflict. They have to have a way to uniquely identify themselves. This is that. So that's why we suggest that you put your own company's URL here in uniqueurl.com, so that no one else will use. I'm assuming that no one else will use your company's URL when they are creating a course. But it gives you a unique identifier. These are in the form of URLs because they obviously give you the option of creating something unique. If you use your own company's URL, no one else should use your URL to define it.
Now, John, what about for Lectora Express LMS, which was just announced? Is there plans for that to support tin can statements?
Absolutely, and that you might see that first with Tin Can. It lends itself very well to that. The freeform aspect of that is certainly something you could imagine seeing in there, and I think would be very helpful in LMS Express.
Okay. Another question here. Sounds like the reporting end of the data will be a challenge. Summarizing for a course all of the responses for a particular action, like visiting a rollover. Will LRSs handle this, or is the admin person expected to take all the LRS data and analyze it?
I would hope that the LRS will handle it. That is obviously something that the LRS vendors will, and really we are using LRS, but these are the LMS vendors of today. They are all working on it. I know for a fact. I've spoken to many of them. It's in the progress right now because there's quite a lot to do. It'll take a little while to get out. And again, it's a young standard. It's going to take a little while for it to be fully supported, but you will see it roll out. I think you're going to see some great support on it on these LMSs out there for reporting and a lot of information. But the good thing is if it doesn't provide what you need, as you've seen, the statements are fairly simple to look at and use. You'll be able to download these and put them in Excel and report on them any way you want to report on them as well.
Someone else writes, I read that it can capture results from anywhere, no matter if it's connected to an LMS or not. How does it work? For example, send a course to someone who does not have a regular internet connection and record the result once it's connected.
Sure. That's one of the selling points. Technically, behind the covers, it allows for that. Tin Can is what they call stateless. I think I mentioned that before, so that it doesn't require a login. Each interaction, each statement that is sent up lives kind of on its own. It should have all of the information it needs to live on its own. Right now, with a course, you do need login information. You need to know where it's reporting to. You need to know who's logged into it, and some additional information that is not necessarily there. That is provided by something like an LMS. However, with a small wrapper shell, you could provide that information to a course. In truth, all of that information is on the URL, the command line that gets passed to a course. And so if you knew all of that information, you could set up a link to a course that would do that. But it will, unlike SCORM and AICC, which have to reside in an LMS in order to work, or at least some sort of a LMS shell that report to it later, Tin Can will allow that. Now, the question of it being disconnected and reporting later, that would obviously need some sort of a capturing wrapper, if you will, around it that would capture it. I think you're going to see a lot of those wrappers being written. I think you'll see them for mobile as well that'll capture that information and pass it up later. There should be a lot of activity in that area coming on.
Great, thanks, John. Is the welcome screen / course launch screen you showed a Lectora LMS or part of the Tin Can software? I think that was the SCORM cloud you were working with.
Oh, yeah, if they're referring to this screen where we went in, this is the SCORM cloud. If we're referring to the welcome screen for the course, I mean, this is just part of the course. So whichever you were referring to there.
How does Tin Can handle conflicts with unique identifiers like the activity URL or username? Will Tin Can allow for universities to insert a unique user ID like student number?
So yes, much like your LMS today, you will have an ID and password. In order to report all this, you do have to have an ID and password or some sort of unique identifier. It can work on Tin Can supports what's called OAuth authentication. It's a very technical and geeky term for a standard, an authentication standard, which is supported by login by Facebook, login. You've seen these buttons, login with Facebook, login with Twitter before. Those use what's called OAuth identification under the covers. Tin Can support that. You do have to have some way to uniquely identify yourself. At a very minimum, it should be an email, but it can be much more than that. So yes, you can have it go anyway. More than likely, the standard case, especially for courses, this will be uploaded to a combination LMS LRS. You will log in the same way you do today, and so that will be your login information. If that is your student ID, then that is the login information that will be used.
Is the SCORM Cloud a Lectora program, and is it available now?
SCORM Cloud is from Rostisi Software. It is not a Lectora program. It is available now. It has been around for quite some time. Rostisi is a company that was kind of the shepherd, if you will, of the Tin Can effort that went on. And so the ADL, which is the same body that standardized SCORM, the ADL was in charge of Tin Can as well, but they let Rostisi really kind of shepherd as it went through. So it is still an ADL standard. It is the next generation of SCORM, but Rostisi was kind of the shepherd, and they owned SCORM.com previously, and they were kind of the ones that set up the first Tin Can LRS, if you will. But
And
it's
we have
free
a
to use and
couple,
it's available now.
oops, sorry. We have a couple questions here. I'm going to try to summarize them all into one because they're all kind of on the same aspect. But someone's asking, if you don't have a learning management system, where is this information stored? Already you've answered anywhere, but I need to particularly know where it's stored. And then someone's asking, is this data, where is it stored? Is it variables? Kind of like how our variables work in Lectora. Like, where is this information? So there seems to be a lot of questions about where they can generate this information if they don't have a learning management system.
So because there's, again, I'm not totally clear on the question if you're referring to the content of the course or the statements that the course is reporting. So the content of the course needs to reside on a web server somewhere so that you can, truthfully, if you created a package around it, you could actually do it on different things. But in the standard case, the course needs to reside on a web server, and it needs to report to an LRS. So the course data would be on a web server. The data does have to, if you don't have an LMS, you do have to at least have an LRS to report to. And that the data from the course, all of the statements from the course, will go to that LRS.
Right, so there's nowhere that they're going to generate that they can pull if they don't have an LRS. They don't
right. It has
get
to talk.
embedded. Right.
It's speaking a language, it's speaking French, and it's going to have to talk to someone who understands French. And that if they're just talking alone, there's no one they're talking to, the data won't be kept somewhere.
Can you use Tin Can on SharePoint?
I don't know that, not as super familiar with SharePoint. I don't know what their support would be for multi-file output. Don't know if they have a way you can just create a directory, but if you had a way to do that, you would be able to give it a launch link. It would not be easy. SharePoint does not natively support Tin Can currently today, but you would need to create a launch URL for it that would have all of the login information. You'd have to have a way to get that and then put it in.
Okay. Can you recommend a beginner's guide to SCORM?
SCORM?
One thing I could recommend is just a couple of weeks ago we presented an Inspiration Wednesday all about SCORM, specifically using SCORM with Lectora content. So definitely check out the archived webinar section of our website, and I think that'll give you a nice, good, solid foundation of what SCORM is. But you can always, I think it's just SCORM.com, or they have information out on the web. Okay, here's a question. Just want to be clear, does Tin Can information reside in an LMS like HealthStream, and can you briefly review where I can find the information? I think this is the same kind of question now that you've been answering.
Right, and yeah, HealthStream doesn't have Tin Can support right now, so it can't talk to HealthStream LMS. But I can, I don't know this, but I can guarantee you that someone at HealthStream is working on that right now and implementing in that, because everyone is. That's what's going on right now.
Is it possible to put a minimum effort criterion on an action for it to report to Tin Can, i.e. a user has to spend a minimum amount of time on a launched website before it is reported as an experienced action?
So can you work on minimum?
Almost like put a condition, really.
Yeah, it'd probably be a condition. You could have a timer, and then you could check that against a minimum condition, something like that. I mean, it's it's any kind of thing you can do with Lectora before. It's not, the Tin Can statement itself is new, but the way it works as an action is not new. So anything you could do with an action before, if you had a way to show something if they were out of time, you have a timer, the timer runs out, you have them stop taking a test, that kind of thing. That same thing can be done for Tin Can statements. Any condition, any way you can do things now, you can do it with Tin Can statements.
Do you see the possibility of Tin Can statements to gather numerical data to more easily use the data to validate a course?
Sure. You can, with a Tin Can statement, so if you look at these Tin Can statements, one of the things you can do is you can use any variable. So if the variable is a numeric, you can even use random values, although I can't imagine you really want to report on a random value. But you can put in any of your variables. So if you have things like your score, although the score is automatically reported, but anything you create in your course can have a value. It could be a numeric value, and that will be added into that. So you can have that work in that way.
Perfect. When you publish to Tin Can, does the test score and other SCORM functions like lesson status still report as usual to the LMS?
Yes, yes, that's one of the nice things. If you're really, let's say your LMS has gone to Tin Can and now everything needs to be Tin Can, you don't need to change. If you're already getting everything you need to get out of your course, you don't have to change anything. You just publish to Tin Can, and you'll get all the information you got from SCORM previously.
Is Trivantis participating in the Tin Can standards working groups?
We participated early on, and we were working with Rustisi on that. We have definitely been in contact with them all along. We are looking to do that going forward as well.
Good. I've heard about Tin Can having the ability to allow a user who is disconnected from the internet to go through a Tin Can course, and then later, when internet connected to their experience data, can be synced to the LRS. I think using HTML5. Is that the case, or am I way off?
And I think this is similar to a question was asked before, but
Yes.
no, definitely not way off. You certainly heard that before, and that is something that technically Tin Can allows. But again, a wrapper would have to be created. Tin Can allows for that. It's the language it speaks has that word in its vocabulary. It allows for you to do that. However, the method of holding on to that data through storing that file because maybe days or weeks till you reconnect, who knows what time it is, that would have to be done. That wrapper would have to be created. And again, I think, like I said, that's something that I think people are working towards. You'll see a lot of that coming out in the near future.
Let's see. I'm just combing through. There seems to be a couple questions that were already answered, so I don't want to waste time on those. Is there a list of examples for each verb available? Not sure how some of those would be used.
The they're used how is there a list of examples? Not truly. They're used any way you want to use them. In truth, you can pick and choose as you will. If you want, you really could put all of your information here in the object that you want, or you could pick and choose different verbs to use along the way. But because it's kind of freeform, they're used how you want to use them. It's not forcing you down any path. I think, and that's really the kind of the good thing about that. If in creating your course, if you always want to know about if you want to use mastered as your verb, then you can always easily report on mastered. So it gives you that possibility of defining it any way you want to define it and making the data more meaningful to you when it comes out.
Except for SCORM Cloud, is there any way to check the Tin Can API course?
SCORM Cloud, there's a few other things out there right now. There's an LRS called Wax LRS that's out there, but it's a pure LRS only, so it does not host the course. So you'd have to host the course yourself and find a way to get the information into the Wax LRS. There are different ones popping up every day. I know many vendors, including us, are working on implementations of that. So you will see this coming out very soon. Again, this is a leading edge kind of technology, but it's pretty exciting technology. I mean, this is something that will change the way we all do our jobs in the future, just because there's so much more you can do with it.
Will Lectora provide a way of viewing a subset of statements inside the course returned from the LRS using the API?
So I think that's more of a question of will CourseMill allow you to view the subset, because Lectora isn't the one who does that, who receives the CourseMill or Lectora Express LMS, if you will. Any server-based hosting solution that has an LRS in it. And sure, I mean, the reporting will be very detailed and allow you to do a lot of things with the data.
Let's see. As of now, how many external entities like training institutes, social sites, etc., have implemented sending Tin Can messages suitable to an LRS? So
I don't know the answer to that.
right.
Yeah, I'm not sure of the answer to that. I do know there's quite a lot of buzz going on in the industry. I don't know if that buzz has really extended out of the e-learning specific industries yet, but again, I would expect it should.
Just looking through. Will the data that is stored in Tin Can be organized under the unique identifier such as a student ID?
The, the student ID will be one of the fields that is stored under, absolutely. So you'll have that stored uniquely for that person, and yes, you'll be able to report on it. But again, it's not, you have to think of it more than just a table view. You'll be able to get that kind of information on it, but you can have multiple views of how you look at the data. But yes, the student ID will certainly be one of those pieces of data that you could track, report on, look at individually.
Can you purchase and implement an LRS on your own servers?
Sure. I believe there's a sample LRS that's available. They actually have, there's an open source sample LRS available on the web that anyone can actually implement. As far as purchasing, I'm sure there's one out. If there's not one, there's one coming. And again, every LMS vendor will be putting LRS functionality into their LMS shortly. And so if you have an LMS right now, it will be able to support Tin Can in the near future.
Do you have any idea, John, just kind of ballpark figures? The follow-up question was, if so, how costly is it to do? So I'm not sure if you have an idea of that. We're usually the wrong people to ask when it comes to pricing.
Right? We do the work. We don't.
Yeah.
It really, the answer to that is how detailed will it be, right? So if you are just doing just listing statements, then sure, that's fairly simple to do. But if you are, going through and doing all the charting and graphing, then it becomes much more complicated.
Is there a way to, with Tin Can statements, track if the learner was read a book, read an article, attended a conference? Is there any way that you can inform the LRS with those types of experiences, I should say?
Yes, and that is one of the promise of Tin Can. That's really not as much of a Lectora Tin Can related, but it could work in the same way. So that's the concept there, is capturing the entire learning experience of a user, which is not always related. Of course, there could be offline things as well. And because Tin Can is stateless, as long as these things are created right, you can have small links to say, I've read this book, I've done this, and that can all be stored in the LRS to get a complete learning history of someone. So yes, that's all in there, but it obviously has to be created for those sites. So I think, as things become more social and you have these sites where you can record a lot of user information, when they implement Tin Can, a user can say, I experienced, and they put in the book, and I read this, and I did this, and that all can be recorded.
In the statement viewer, what drives the order of data, and can we sort?
So the statement viewer that we looked at was the one in the SCORM cloud, and that was just we looked at a very simple view, just a linear view of it. Though again, those will be implemented in different ways by every vendor, as obviously there are competitive advantages to be that every vendor is going to try to get, and I'm sure there will be 1,000 different ways you'll be able to view and sort and look and parse and slice and dice the data any way you want.
Here's a good question. Can you use or add Tin Can statements and upload to an LMS that doesn't currently support Tin Can, with the hopes that in the future they will add support for it and mitigate having to rebuild courses? Or will it just fail or not be accepted or unsupported by the LMS?
The answer is B. It will just fail and not be accepted or supported by the LMS. Again, this is the language thing. The beauty is that with a Lectora course, the SCORM, you don't have to change the course much. If you publish to SCORM, it's going to be SCORM. If you publish to Tin Can, it'll be Tin Can, and it needs to speak that. So you can easily just keep it in SCORM as it is now, not do, not have those tin can statements in, if you will. But then when you're ready to publish a tin can, you can just quickly add those in if you're LMS vendors, and you'll have that way to author a tin can.
Is there a way to save a tin can API statements as a log file and do that automatically and not manually?
That's a question of the learning management, the LRS, if you will. That is one of the requirements of an LRS, that you'll be able to download and export those. So, but will it be done automatically? I mean, it's not going to be automatically. It'll be part of the LRS. So it's not part of Lectora. It'll report to the LRS. You can go into the LRS and export those statements. But I don't. They're automatically saved to the LRS. But then you'd have to go in and export those out of the LRS.
Can you create and add to the list of verbs in Lectora?
Yes, you can. That is actually a free-form field. You can type in anything you want there. I suggest not using that verb in particular. That's kind of an odd one. But these are currently the accepted verbs that will be supported by the LRSs, and we'll keep up with that and make sure that that we have the latest ones there. But yes, you can free-form your own.
Great. And is Tin Can available for both Lectora Publisher and Inspire?
Yes, it is.
Of course. How would you set up a Lectora Tin Can package to sit on a web server and push records to an LRS, like WAX?
That is done through a URL command line. So the interface, the startup interface between a LRS and a Lectora course is all done on the URL of the command line. So that is this up here. So you'll see all this information up here. There's actually quite a lot of things here. You have a course ID. You have a bunch of information. I'm sorry, that's actually in the launch of the course. So if you go into here, all of it, when we launch it, all that information is provided in here. And so you would just have
John, I think we lost your audio.
do you want to go into here? Oh, sorry.
You cut out for just a second. There you go.
Okay. I was just referring to how it gets launched. It's all launched on the command line, so you need a custom command line that would support that information and have all the information. It's really not something we wanted to go into here. It's extremely complicated, but there is that information can be provided. There's many sources on the internet that have and it is also specific to the LRS you're going to as to exactly what information will be needed on that command line.
Great. Is there any confirmation or acknowledgement supported by Tin Can? So does the course know if a statement sent to the LRS was received successfully?
Does the course know if a state? Oh, yes. And if it is not, it'll log it. A successful receipt of a statement does not cause any feedback to the user. But if ever there is a case where a statement has not been successfully received, you will get a message immediately from the course.
As an LMS developer, is the idea that Tin Can statements are stored in the LMS SQL database with other LMS data? Is there documentation available for how to record/store Tin Can in an LMS?
That's probably information. There's an open source version of an LRS available on the web. I'm trying to think of where that is available, but it's something that was created by the ADL. If you go to the ADL site, they'll point you to that, and that probably will give you the best idea of where things should be stored. We're getting close to 10. I want to make one more statement before we went. As we've said several times, the standard for Tin Can is changing and moving and evolving. And we've actually just had a release of Lectora 11.2. If you want to be experimenting with Tin Can and using it, there is another additional file you will need, a JavaScript file that you'll have to add to your Lectora. Please contact Trivana support to get that file. It'll make some new changes. It's just some updates to deal with some of the changes that have been taking place, and there may be more as time goes on. So if you'll be doing some experimenting with Tin Can, please go ahead and contact support and get that updated JavaScript file that you'll need.
Great. And John, I think we have time for just one more question. How about the Tin Can API courses? Will they support mobile or iPad devices?
If yes, again, technically, yes, they can, but then those devices will need to, okay, actually, I guess there's two answers to that question. If you're running them through a browser, yes, absolutely. They'll run in the browser just like they run today. If you're wanting to run them disconnected, then again, there will need to be a wrapper that will hold, it will download that course, hold that information, and send that out. So they will work just fine today, just like a SCORM course actually works just fine today, as long as you're connected on that device. Question is, can you run disconnected with them?
Great. Okay, well, thanks, John, so much. Thank you all for attending today's webinar. We are out of time for today. If you have questions that were not answered, we do apologize. There were several questions that we had to get through in the time allotted, but please feel free to send those on to support. We are always here to help. We hope that you enjoyed the session and gained a lot of information from it. We'll be running it again at 1:30 if you want to repeat all of that information. So thanks again. We hope to see you on a future Inspiration Wednesday. So thanks, John.
All right, bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye.